is late. It is late at night, and we are off the grid. And while both of those things are true, I cannot vouch for anything else in the world. But those things are true. It's late. It's actually early in the morning, just rounded the midnight hour up here in New England. And we are off the grid, and we could do a little power check. This is how it looked today, though. Figured I'd check in, kind of see how everything looked today. Got Huckleberry out there. It was cold. It's been cold out. It kind of warmed up a little bit tonight. We got still a lot of snow on the ground, and we're supposed to get more. So that's how it's going. That's how it's looking. Yeah, I know that's kind of like it looks like a still picture there, but it was pretty calm out today. We made a little bit of power. Made a little bit of power in the snow. It's kind of what I want to talk about today. Is how much battery power we need, how much battery storage we need, and how much you might want to plan on if you're thinking about connecting a system on grid or off grid for an overnight, having to last overnight in a power outage, or wanting to switch off your gridded system and have some power to last on grid as long as you can. So again, we make power in these conditions. I can switch to our power check, and I'll show you how much power we were making when I took this. Actually, let's see. Here we are. We sat at 70%. Actually, I just took this. This is the power we had tonight. This was not too long ago. So we're sitting at 70%. We're a little bit less now. And we charged up tonight. Let's see. Let's run through our little periphery here. We used 26.3. I'd say that's fairly average in the wintertime. Depending, again, our range of use goes from maybe 10 or 12 kilowatts on the light side if we're trying to conserve for an entire day, to 26.3 plus 30, 35, depending on how much cooking we do and how much high yield appliances we end up using. So today we use 26.3, and I think that's about average. And of that, we actually did produce a little bit of power. We generated 28. We actually generated a lot of power today, 28.8. The sun came out. We made a good amount of power. As you can see, we made more than we used. So if we used 26, we generated 28. We came up with a surplus, so that was good. And this is just going through our Tesla app on the phone that gives us the breakdown in real time of what power we're using. This is the power wall, what the power wall put out, what we charged up to. And you could kind of pinpoint it here and say, all right, well, what was our high point? What was our high water mark today? And we did hit 92%. We didn't get all the way up to 100%, but we did hit 92%. And so pretty happy about that. We're sitting at about 70% right now. We'll probably roll into tomorrow with about 50% power. We'll probably go through another 20, 25% from midnight tonight to about 7:30, 8 in the morning is when we're going to start making power again. So that gives us the confidence to make it. It's going to snow again tomorrow. We're going to get through tomorrow, no problem. And then we might have to switch to the car. That's what we do in a pinch, is we switch over to the car. We use vehicle to load, and that gets us through the times when we're not exactly producing enough power and we haven't stored enough power in our batteries. We have 3 Tesla power walls. We have a total capacity of storage of 40 kilowatts. And our car, our Hyundai Ioniq 5, has a capacity of 80 kilowatts, and we can use most of that. And so that powers our house largely in the wintertime. So that's what we use. We switch from the power wall to the car when we need some extra power. And that's sort of our power wall breakdown. That's how it works. So the food for thought, it rolls quite into that. It's like, how much battery power do you actually need? So I had seen this article, Home Solar in Rural America. How much battery power do you need in a winter storm? And I think that's a particular key there, is in a winter storm, because the winter puts you in a deficit in 2 ways. The winter puts you in a deficit both in the cold, and the cold definitely diminishes the capacity of the lithium-ion batteries in particular. So we're going to see a 10 or a 20% loss on our battery storage, no matter what. So if we have 40 kilowatts to pull from in the summertime in perfect ideal conditions, we only have probably 28 to 30 kilowatts to pull from in the wintertime. And so it's tricky because you have to oversize a little bit for the winter, but you don't want to oversize too much because it gets expensive. And so how much power do you actually need? How much power depends on what kind of storm you're trying to get through. It depends on if you're trying to commit to being off grid for extended periods of time, or if you're just trying to mitigate the inconvenience of being in a storm. So, it kind of, there's a who, what, when, where, and why of how this whole thing works. And so basically what this article went on to say, and this was good because it gave a few breakdowns. One thing you want to identify is you've got some critical loads. We have some critical loads in our house. What are the critical loads in our house? It depends on who you ask. If you ask our daughters what the critical load is in the house, it's the internet. And I don't disagree with that to a large extent because a lot of the informatics for our house, so the solar information and information about the well, the pump, how power's working, it does kind of rely on solar. So it's a little bit of a paradigm because we live off the grid, yet we need a really strong solar connection to make sure that we're staying consistent and staying updated with all of the important information that we use to run our house. So the internet is important. The fireplace in the wintertime. I mean, that's the one thing. I should have pulled up a video of that, but the dogs sleep by the fireplace. The fireplace heats our whole house. We have a wood burning fireplace. It heats our about 2,400 square feet plus a little bit more. And that is one of the fireplace and the refrigerator. And those two appliances for us personally don't take a lot of power to use. So we're looking at about maybe 0.3. And this article here, it's kind of small. Can I even make it bigger? I probably can. This article, it goes on to talk about, how much power different appliances end up using. And I think that they overestimate some things and underestimate some things. But all things considered, I think they're pretty spot on with daily usage. Average daily usage of somewhere between 20 and 30 kilowatts. I think they had it at 30 kilowatts. They had it at, let's say 30 times 10. So what's that? 210 kilowatts a week or something of that nature. And so that kind of gives you some idea. But if you're really just trying to get through a storm, I mean, and that's what this article was really saying, like in the wintertime, in a rural area where a lot of people are, and you have the capacity to add some solar or some batteries, how much power do you need? And at the end of the day, the rule of thumb that I use is half a kilowatt. That's our kind of like our bottom line. We want to keep the lights on. We want to keep everything functioning. Our internet stays on. We can watch TV with that. A half a kilowatt an hour, 0.5. 1 kilowatt an hour if you want to be really conservative and say, let's make sure we maintain enough power to use some showers and maybe heat some tea up or use the microwave or things like that. Maybe you say, a kilowatt an hour, which brings you out to the 24 kilowatts per day, which is really about the average that we end up using, 20 to 30 kilowatts per day, I think, in the average U.S. household. So again, it depends seasonally. Up here in the Northeast in New England, you're running heat. So when it gets cold out, heat, it takes it's a high output of power. So depending on how you're heating the house, that's why we chose to use a wood-burning stove, just because at that point, we're really just powering the fan that pushes that heat out. And so our real critical mass appliances at that point, if I can, how do I switch this back? Our critical appliances at that point become our refrigerator, our heat, our internet, and our lights. And that's about 0.5 kilowatts. So really in an entire day, a 24-hour day, we could run that with 12 kilowatts, which gives us a lot of options, especially in our particular case. And we have a setup very similar to this. This is a huge barn. And if you could see the picture in this article I was reading, it was Electech. We have a similar setup, just with a smaller barn. One of the nice things is we do have a pretty aggressive roof slope. And so in the last storm, we got 30 inches up here in our last storm. And it was warm enough the next day that really just clearing that first course, just clearing a little bit down, the snow slides off. We were producing power after the snowstorm that very next day. So as long as you keep up with your system and as long as you design a system that is suitable for you to use throughout the different seasons that you got to go through, you really can last, whether it's a power outage of a day or a power outage of multiple days, a week, or you're living off grid like we are. We've lived off grid for 5 years. So it is definitely doable. There's been a learning curve. And now the resources, the options, the opportunities, and the technology that's available is significantly greater than when we planned this house and when we started. And so, this is all really emerging as a very like palatable way of living, which is exciting. And so in this particular article, again, it's like off grid to get you through a storm, but then you can add to that. Once you've sort of prepped yourself for that sort of living, once you've prepped yourself to be off grid for any amount of time, you can scale that up to be off grid for a lot longer. And that's really nice. It's nice to have control, even to a certain degree, even if it's, somewhat anecdotal, it's nice to have control. Nice to have some, democratic control of the power that we're using and the power we have access to. And so when you're producing your solar power and storing it, and when you have the ability, like we do have our electric vehicle, and it's not necessarily, to have an electric vehicle. It's really nice. It's an awesome car, and the performance is fantastic. But it's really to be our backup generator for our house. And you could start to put these pieces together to say, okay, so if we need to last for 2 nights, two days and 2 nights with limited to no power, we have 3 Tesla Powerwalls to handle that. 1 Tesla Powerwall will basically get us through 1 night. 2 Tesla Powerwalls will get us through 2 nights. But if it's a gray day in between, we need that 3rd Tesla Powerwall to bridge the gap. So we do have the 3. We could have used a 4th or a 5th, to be perfectly honest. But what we end up doing is once we get through the first night, the first day, the second night, we're going to switch to the car, because our car has 80. Our house has 40 kilowatts. Our car has 80. And the car will get us through, a day, days, weeks, until the sun comes back out. And so we don't really ever have a problem, bridging the gap between a winter storm like we had, the 30 inches we had, and we were fortunate to have sunshine the next day, and we were producing power that next day. But if it needs to be 3 or 4 days between the battery storage we have with 3 Powerwalls, so 40 kilowatts of storage, I think that is a great start in terms of acclimating to being off grid and seeing how long that amount of power can take you. So if you're using a 0.5 kilowatt an hour, you're using 12 kilowatts a day. So if you have 40 kilowatts, you really, at least in a vacuum, you've got like 3 to 4 days of being able to exist off the grid. And I think I'm comfortable in saying that is very doable, very possible. And even in the frigid, we're having a really cold winter here. I have the, of course, I'm picking a warmer day to pull up the analytics of this. It's 39. It was 39 degrees out tonight. It's warm. It has been sub-zero here for weeks on end, and our Powerwalls have done well. I mean, we lose efficiency. So we lose 10 to 20% efficiency on both our home battery and our car battery. But what we lose in efficiency, we make up in the ability to, at least in the car, recharge that and bring that back. So we do have the ability to produce power a couple ways, and we have a backup generator. And what the backup generator does, and this is just seeing, we got some snow coming tomorrow, but then we got some sunny days coming up. And as long as you plan for it, I mean, that's half the battle right there. It's just making sure you plan for the adventures that you have ahead of you. Sunshine, snow, rain, whatever it is in New England, it could be all 3 in one day. But we also have a generator that charges our Powerwalls. So our backstop, we've got the Powerwalls for power, we've got the car as a backup generator, and we actually do have a liquid propane generator that feeds into the Tesla Powerwalls. And slowly but surely, it's like a trickle feed. It's honestly like it's slower. It charges our batteries with less power than our like stage 1 car charger, but it does the job when we need it to. And that's it. So at the end of the day, if you're trying to get through a night, 12 hours, and you're really on survival mode, figure you're going to use 1 kilowatt an hour. and maybe get yourself something the equivalent of 12 kilowatts. I would say at minimum 6, but if you could get 12, the more you can get, or if you can get a system where you could scale up, I think that gives you the biggest advantage in terms of understanding what your power needs are going to be, and then setting yourself up to not have to make another initial investment, but just kind of package on to what you've already established and the system that you're going to be used to running. And a lot of these systems like ours do, a lot of these systems have, like this is our Tesla app. This is, what's happening in our house right now. And a lot of the EcoFlows and Jackeries, a lot of these Generacs, a lot of these, established and emerging home battery systems and off-grid systems, you're going to be able to monitor in real time. And so that's one thing that's really helpful, that paying attention to the weather. You just use the resources you have to put yourself in a good position to understand what you're going to need. And I would start with, 6 to 12 kilowatts of power if you're looking to get yourself as an entire home. If you're just looking to get yourself through, that storm, bridge that gap between that gray day, that stormy day, and what's coming next. And as long as you can control your power usage, and that might be just shutting things off at the breaker, if your breaker is convenient to get to, shutting off some of the things that you don't end up using. Or if you size your system big enough, if it's a kilowatt an hour and you size your system big enough that you give yourself time to run for 12, 24 hours plus. That's all possible. So that's my food for thought. I think it's a moving target. It's hard because you're going to want to undersize it in the summer because you're producing so much power that you hardly need to rely even on your batteries. On grayer days, you're still producing so much power. Higher sun arc, longer days equals more power. And in the wintertime, it's the opposite. It's lower sun arc, shorter days, less power. And you're going to want to oversize it for the winter. So it's finding that sweet spot, but that's really understanding how much power you use. So that's another conversation for another day, but it's definitely worth starting to pay attention to, what, and there's devices you can use to do that. And there's just ways you could generally estimate what your power usage is and what your appliances use, even though I wouldn't necessarily trust what the appliance information is, because in real life conditions, it's going to vary. It's going to vary a lot. So that's my food for thought. But that definitely takes me to the Made Me Look. I'm a big Ari at Home fan. I don't know if anybody follows Ari at Home. He walks around New York City, jams out with his homemade rig. Let's add him to the stage here. And really just brightens people's days with music, improvisational music. We ran into Wyclef from the Fugees. And man, you really talented people who can play music. I'm just amazed by and grateful to, because it definitely sets the beat and the rhythm for my day in a much more positive way. But I'm just going to play this like minute and a half clip of Ari. He's on the right, and you'll see Wyclef is rolling up on the left there.
What's up, bro?
I should have bought my guitar. What up with you, boy?
I'm good, bro. I'm Ari. Nice to meet you, man.
I know. Come on, really?
I don't know.
Wyclef, how I ain't gonna know who you are? I love your quickness.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate that.
You gonna catch a vibe? I know you build beats right on
bro.
the spot.
What are you trying to get into?
Give me like some reggae vibes, man.
Oh.
You want me to give you the bass line? Or you got me?
Sure.
Give me this.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah. Enough styly, and me got enough styly. With the one Irie, we got enough styly. Out there in Brooklyn, we smoke Cincy. Wyclef man, the big Fuji. Spanish, vida amiga. Buenos días, señorita. Como está usted y su familia? 2 1s ain't enough to make it rain. Microphone check 1 2. Rap lives in my veins. Skip the 6, go to 7. That's the number of completion. Adam ate the apple, so they cast him from Eden. 2020 vision, say the good die young. You know I had to trick death, that's how I made it past 21. Clean them in me, packing a green, no eat no rice, no pork and bean, not go out of go, the mic up pro. Eat banana, eat mango. Story and it never begun, see Dracula on television, he would rip on the neck like vampire man. Use a cross for your weapon. Hey girl, I can see your body moving. And it's driving me crazy. $5 to see go. Much corrupted by Pono.
Well, that got me moving. I don't know. It just made me happy. Made me happy that he ran into Wyclef. He makes such good music with everybody. And you just realize that, you know, when people bring out the best in us, the world is really connected in such a positive way. So that was about it. That gave me power for the day. Trying to stay on the positive. These are the things that make me happy, the things that give me power. You know, so hopefully you had enough power in your day. Hopefully you got your batteries charged up at least a little bit like we did. And you're at least rolling into tomorrow with a little bit of power in the bank. So keep going, and I will catch up with you sooner than later. Thanks, everybody.